Welcome to episode 167 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the hot takes and lifetime experiences episode of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host after bowling in the PBA Pro-Am at the PBA Players Championship and getting to meet a bunch of his heroes. My mind is still blown, so I have no idea what's going to come out for the next couple of hours, but we'll see what we can do. And another person who had his mind blown, life-changing experience, got to see people who saw their kinfolk and maybe saw some other things. iRacing Indy 500 champion, computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar. His name is Josh Fine. What's going on, brother?
Hey, I'm doing great, Phil. Of course, I also had some lifetime experiences this weekend with seeing a bunch of shenanigans happen at the Tour of Destruction at Orlando Speed World, which I probably will just talk about that instead of sim racing this week. But got to see that. But of course, a lot of stuff happening this weekend in IndyCar, NASCAR, especially today with the rain-delayed Cup race, and then yesterday's F1 Azerbaijan Grand Prix, where we saw a lot of things happen there, and my pick with Sergio Perez was also ended up being the correct pick for that race. So ready to get into it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going on a street course in Formula One, uh, Josh was ahead of it. But to be fair, he's a street course master. Checo Perez gets the victory after a timely full course yellow came out for I don't know who the fuck it was because I didn't even see the race. But he got the yellow in a timely spot. Fish Lips couldn't pass him. Checo beat him on pace, which is great. So we'll talk about Formula One here later on in the Indy Grand Prix of Alabama. What do you call a Kiwi got the victory. Scott McLaughlin beat Roman Grosjean heads up, largely because of a caution that kind of fell in his favor as a three-stopper. It was a solid enough race. The battle between 2 and 3 stops really was interesting. That's where you had to dig in on the battles. Anybody who was on 2 stops was really out of it. We'll get into the Indy cars first, since we're in the month of May. So we'll start with that. In NASCAR this weekend at Dover, one of the closest races to my house, was a Truex family benefit. We joke around about Martin Truex Jr. having 18 home tracks. Well, his actual home track, he broke a long losing streak this afternoon. We're doing this on Monday evening. Long losing streak, broke that on a Monday, in the same way as he won his first career cup race on a Monday. What is it? 16 years ago, I believe. Yeah, on the day that Bill France Jr. Passed away. So nobody died, so that's good. Martin Truex gets a win on the heels of his brother Ryan Truex, not Jr., getting his first career Xfinity win, first win in the top 3 series of NASCAR. 89 starts in the Xfinity series, dominated that race. Credit to Ryan Truex. He did such a great job there. And credit to him to go and do what he did there. I mean, it proves a point that if you give a guy that has the talent and ability and opportunity in a good car, he can make it happen, and that's what he did. We'll get into the NASCAR events, and Josh has a hot take about Ross Chastain, who sent Brennan Poole earlier this afternoon, and in part took out hard R Kyle Larson, and Kyle Larson basically made Ross Chastain's life a living hell, which in turn helped Martin Truex win the race. We mentioned Formula One. We'll get into that. We'll see where NFL draft talk is. Jacksonville had picks. The Niners definitely made a lot of interesting picks. Questionable how the draft went. A lot of people were panning the way the Niners went about their draft. But to be fair, they needed a kicker because Robbie Gould said he wasn't going to come back for whatever reason, since his market seems to be so wide right now. But he also can't kick off, and the guy that we got could kick it from here to Australia, so I think that's probably a good thing. The roundup's busy, 6 hours of Spa, a lot of wrecks there. MotoGP and Moto2 at Jerez was action-packed. Charlotte Four Ride Nationals, SuperCars at Wanneroo, Indy NXT was at Barber, F2 at Baku. Ollie Bierman gets 2 wins there. And then we'll preview Barcelona in World Superbike and Formula E, Monaco E-Prix. The Grand Prix of Miami and the, parking lot of Hard Rock Stadium. We'll talk about that. Cup and Trucks at Kansas. Josh's sim segment might end up being, as he said, about the Destruction Derby or Demo Derby and all the experiences you had there, which has to be something.
Yeah, I went go-karting too there, so yeah.
Yeah. There's a whole lot going on there, so we could probably go and talk about that, and we'll close the deal. So, yeah, Indy Grand Prix of Alabama, as Lee Diffie would say, was a battle essentially between Romain Grosjean, who qualified on pole for this race and dominated a good amount of this race, led the most laps, and probably should have won if the 2-stop strategy had actually held up. Instead, Scott McLaughlin gets his first victory of 2023 with at Barber by 1.78 seconds over Romain Grosjean, and Will Power finishes third. Scott McLaughlin was in the Fast Six. He had a good car. He wasn't as good as Romain Grosjean, to be fair, but 2 stops versus 3 stops, the way the cautions landed, it just wasn't in the favor of the Andretti Autosport driver. Pato O'Ward finished 4th. Alex Palou finished 5th. So 4 of the top 5 were the guys that were in the Fast Six. You get all the way down to 7th. All the Fast Six is represented in the top 7 minus Will Power, who finished in 3rd. You had Lundgaard, Dixon, Alexander Rossi, Felix Rosenqvist, and points leader Marcus Ericsson finishing 10th, coming off of getting married last week. So congratulations to him and his probably smoking hot wife. Marcus Armstrong couldn't believe he got the Hard Charger Award. He didn't know that they got awards for finishing 11th. It was kind of hilarious how that all thing was on the NBC. But Marcus Armstrong getting 11th place finish. So all 4 of the Ganassi cars inside of the top 11. They threw the yellow for Stingray Robb, who fell out of the race. They held that yellow for 3 laps, which essentially gave the 3-stop guys the advantage. I mean, but to be fair, when you look at it in the top 10, 1, 2, 3, 4 guys in the top 10 were 3-stoppers versus 2-stoppers. So the 2-stop strategy was better. It's just the fact that the way everything landed wasn't in the favor of Romain Grosjean. He also somehow or another ran out of push to pass, which he went from like 100 and something seconds to nothing, which I'm assuming, or I'm going to just venture to say was a malfunction of the entire system, because how the heck does that happen, really? Grosjean had the best car. He was the best driver for a good part of the weekend. But in the end, Josh, Scotty McLaughlin, one of the bus bros, gets himself an early present prior to the month of May, knowing that the big prize is here a month from now, or at the end of this month, to go and anoint himself and basically lock himself into um, career employment at Penske Racing if he can go and win the Indianapolis 500. But first, he wins at Barber and gets himself right in the points chase in the IndyCar series early on in 2023.
Yeah, Scotty McLaughlin and the Thirsty Threes, they go out and win this weekend here at Barber Motorsports Park. And, the percent chance of them winning with their three-stop strategy, according to, IndyCar's Instagram page, they're, on their social media is about 9%, whereas Romain Grosjean, the two-stop strategy is supposed to work and it has 91% chance of winning. And obviously that helps with a, mostly green race, and it would have worked, I think, except for the fact that the pit stop came in the middle of the race, or the caution for Stingray Robb came in the middle of the race there, driving for Griftware Racing and Dale Coyne. So obviously, we know that car is not really good there, but it definitely helped the guys on the three stop strategy, like you said, and gave them kind of an advantage there, a little bit of leverage in their favor. And still, I mean, Romain Grosjean was able to get around. After his pit stop, his second pit stop, he was able to get around Scotty McLaughlin, and he was able to get around him really cleanly. And I honestly thought, with about 20 laps to go there, that he made the winning pass. Passing him on the outside, hanging on the outside going into the final corner and coming out with the lead there. And it was a really, really brilliant move, honestly, by him to be able to do that. But, with the three stop strategy there for McLaughlin, I think he was able to, use the advantage of having an extra set of tires to go off of. And then, being able to still have the push to pass there, and took advantage of, Grosjean, being on less tire there at the end, and also running out of the P2P. So, I think for Grosjean, another good run, and shows that he's quite capable, and possibly the best that the 28 car for Andretti Autosport has probably run since Ryan Hunter-Reay in his championship back in 2012 there. But I mean, it's interesting to see what they'll find out with the system there for push to pass for Grosjean, because that shouldn't have happened for him. But maybe use too much of it, trying to get up to back up to with McLaughlin, trying to get him to the lead. But then even then, they had pointed out he had a lot of push to pass left, so clearly maybe a system malfunction there, and obviously left him very vulnerable to McLaughlin. McLaughlin was able to take advantage of that and use his push to pass, and basically go in there wide open to be able to pass. In terms of push to pass, be able to use that to get around Grosjean, who obviously couldn't defend it and couldn't do anything about it. And then, slowly but surely, Grosjean lost time to McLaughlin, and then fell back into the clutches of Will Power, who, of course, used the same strategy there, and really was able to make up a ton of time throughout the race. He started in 11th and made it all the way up into the podium. So could have been a top two there, but I think he ran out of car there at the very end to get around Grosjean. So, excellent strategy by that team as well. But, I think, mostly the focus is on Grosjean and McLaughlin. Of course, their first clash at the beginning of the year at St. Petersburg, they both got into it and took each other out. And then here they had a revisit of that same type of sequence where Grosjean getting out of the pits this time, and had a chance to get around him, and they race each other cleanly this time. So yeah, credit to both of them for being able to pull it off there, and being able to give an entertaining finish. And at some point, I think for Roman, I think he's gonna get his win at some point. We have the Indianapolis Grand Prix coming up here in 2 weeks. So definitely, I think he has a chance to go out and get a win where he got his first pole a couple years ago. So definitely, he has a chance there to go and get that to happen. So credit to him there. Some of the rest of the guys, of course, we picked, or I picked Joseph Newgarden, who first lap he led 6 laps, but first lap got into it. And damaged the right rear tire and the suspension there. So, he just didn't have the handling there, and mostly, got mired in the back. So, or, back half the field for the most part. So, unable to really do anything, even though he probably had a good car and good qualifying position, obviously in 7th place. So, unfortunate there. But yeah, Palou, Lundgaard also had good runs. Rossi, good recovery after previous race in Long Beach where he got crashed. Rosenquist, who had that incident with Newgarden there, definitely ended up going to the back and made it back up to the top 10 there. So and then of course can't forget about Marcus Armstrong. Your bonus pick there. Starting in 26th and making it all the way into 11th, just outside the top 10. So, biggest move of the race right there. So, yeah, there's a lot that happened, this weekend in this race, but it was definitely, entertaining, and we got to see, good race from start to finish, and the strategies play out between the two-stop strategy and the three-stop strategy there. So yeah, it was definitely a great race that we saw this weekend here at Barber.
One of the fan favorites. I mean, what is it? The guys on the radio for PRN was trying to talk about how great of a crowd they had at Dover and trying to shit on IndyCar. I'm like, IndyCar was at one of their biggest races, one of their best races that they get for fans at Barber, the Augusta of motorsports tracks, Augusta National Motorsports tracks. George Barber does a great job hosting the Indy cars and hosting whoever shows up, putting on great races. I mean, it's a tough racetrack to make passes. Essentially, there's one passing zone, but it's more of a strategy race. And I mean, with the Indy cars, these guys, the vast majority of these guys are very good drivers and they keep it clean. The fact that there was actually I thought this was going to be a fully green race, which would have made it even crazier than what it was. But to be fair, Scott McLaughlin, he's trying to win this championship. He put himself in a position yesterday to go and do that by going and winning at Barber with the Beef Packers, whatever the hell that was car. Kind of reminds me of Danny Lasowski back in the day. Grosjean is due. The Indy Road Course fits perfectly for him to go and get that maiden victory. Colton Herta won that race a year ago, or might have won the second one of the ones that they had at Indy Road Course. Otherwise, Newgarden's been great there over his entire career. The McLaren team, all doing pretty well. I guess par for the course these days. Rosenquist to recover from tailback, as Rusty Wallace would say, to get back up into the top 10. Good recovery for him. And yeah, I mean, even Marcus Armstrong. I mean, Josh, you had Newgarden and Rosenquist, and I made the bonus pick. VK was nowhere because Ed Carpenter Racing sucks. So I figure VK is going to be in play for Chip Ganassi now. Speaking of Chip Ganassi, I picked Dixon, and he was up there. So it is what it is. I mean, the IndyCars will be back here in a couple weeks' time to run the Indy Grand Prix, the GMR Grand Prix of Indy, or whatever the hell they call it. Let me just go and get the points here before we move forward. Yeah, GMR Grand Prix on May 13th. Marcus Ericsson leads with 130 points. Pato O'Ward, 3 points behind him in second. Alex Palou, the 2021 IndyCar champion, is 9 points behind his teammate Marcus Ericsson. So that's a top three. Right now, the top five, which includes Scotty McLaughlin and Roman Grosjean, are separated by 15 points. Joseph Newgarden in 6th, Will Power 7th, Scott Dixon 8th, Kyle Kirkwood 9th, and Colton Herta in 10th. Callum Ilott, Christian Lundgaard, et cetera, Malukas, Rossi, Rosen. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So we'll see what happens at Indy Road Course here in a couple weeks' time. Well, let's get into the NASCAR Cup Series Worthless 400. That was definitely one that if you wanted to fall asleep, you probably would. Since there wasn't a whole hell of a lot that went on in that race. Remain likely renew, and even as it carves out. Oh, lovely. Fox and NBC are going to continue. That's terrible. That's not what I wanted to hear, but okay. 11th race of the season. Martin Truex Jr. gets the victory today. His first victory in his first win of the year, fourth at Dover, 32nd career victory, which is pretty cool. And then sweeping the National Series events. We'll get into Ryan's victory. For first 54 race winless streak broken. He locks himself into the playoffs. He looked good today. Martin Truex Jr. gets the victory over Ross Chastain, Ryan Blaney, William Byron, who led the most laps. Denny Hamlin rounded out the top 5. Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, Josh Berry in the 48 car filling in for Alex Bowman, and William Clyde Elliott II, and Darrell Walsh Jr. were the 12 cars on the lead lap after 400 miles at Dover. Essentially, the entire race was dominated by William Byron, who won the first stage, finished second in the second one to Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain led the second most laps, and then Martin Truex led the third most and basically led the last 68 laps or so. Basically the last 68 laps except for one during a pit stop sequence. And that was the determining factor. So Martin Truex Jr. getting his 32nd career win, tying Dale Jarrett, Hall of Famer Dale Jarrett, in wins. It's been a long dry spell for him, a year and a half plus to get a victory again. Ryan Blaney's another one that needs one. Maybe he'll be in a position to do that at Kansas. But I'm going to tee this up for you. You were telling me offline, Josh, that you had a take on Ross Chastain, who around lap 80, he decided to send Brennan Poole in one of those rent-a-wreck cars that Rick Ware puts out there. And in the process, Kyle Larson was part of the collateral damage. I'm still trying to figure out what happened to the 14 car. I don't have a clue what happened to him other than the car was probably dog shit, which is entirely possible since you go from six, you start sixth and you finish 30th and you're 22 laps down. Your car probably is dog shit because BJ McLeod was involved in a wreck with Suarez and Ty Dillon, and he ran more laps than you. That's inexplicable. But yeah, Josh, 12 cars on a lead lap. Typical Dover race. Keeler Gibbs, Corey LaJoy up there, a lap down. Some of the other guys. Ryan Preece got a top 20. Harvick probably should add more than what he got out of the race and finishing 19th. Kyle Busch from the pole led the first 25 laps, got a speeding penalty, and basically was battling back for the rest of the day. Finished 3 laps down in 21st. The top, yeah, so other than that, I mean, there really wasn't a whole hell of a lot that happened this afternoon at Dover. Couple of, I mean, I thought I had the last place finisher, but for some reason, Noah Gagson ran 9 laps more than Suarez and Dillon. Screwed me out of that in my fantasy league, the Michael Sanders league. But let's hear what you're gonna say about old Ross Chastain, the new Dart Without Feathers, the new Swervin' Irvin. We need a nickname for him now. We should make a nickname and put it out on social media. Hopefully, it'll take off. I was trying to go and promote our shit, and at the bowling alley. Trying to get people to listen. So, what is your take on Ross Chastain?
Well, no, I mean, I think he did the right thing by taking out Brennan Poole there. I mean, you said it right there. I mean, the 15 is basically a dog shit car. They don't try. You've been saying it for, however long that, they're just out there to collect a paycheck. And that's why I called them griftware racing in the previous segment when IndyCar, and that's exactly what it is. They're a tire grift, and they. I think the only time they've ever been competitive on somewhat of a level is the restrictor plate tracks and the Bristol Dirt Race when JJ Yaley was driving that car, and at Coda when Jenson Button. But Ross Chastain gets in the back of him for whatever reason and takes him out, and Kyle Larson is just a innocent bystander there, just a casualty for the cause. I think he did the field a favor by getting rid of one of the slowest cars in the field, and somebody who's probably going to end up finishing 10 laps down anyways and be in the way of everybody. So, yeah, I mean, Ross Chastain took him out there and, put him in the wall. And, it's a preemptive strike for sure. Maybe his favorite president is George W. Bush or something, but, he's always been doing this all the way back to the Bush series or the Xfinity series and everything, and the Truck series, and he's going to keep on doing it until something really happens to him. I mean, we've seen him get wrecked before in Xfinity and even in Cup, and he's still doing it. So no, I mean, keep doing it. Just once again, try not to wreck people, but he keeps doing it. So I think he should just own up to it right here and just take my advice. Just say, hey, I wrecked him. I'm not sorry. I did the field a favor by getting rid of a guy that was gonna be in the way of everybody. So I think he should just 100% just flat out own the fact that he wrecked the guy instead of saying, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it, and move on. And sorry to Kyle Larson, but again, just a righteous casualty in the war against griftware racing here. And maybe they can take a lesson in providing competitive cars and not just collecting a paycheck I mean, at least Spire Racing, they're a similar team. They kind of did the same deal, starting Park, but at least they've improved and expanded to 2 cars, and at least one of them is semi-competitive with Corey LaJoy. And they're slowly improving and are somewhat of an underdog at some races here this year. So the 15 has never been competitive, and can't say I've ever seen a race outside of Jensen Button and JJ Ailey this year where they were legitimately even an underdog threat to even like crack the top 10. So yeah.
Reese when he ran it a couple of times last year.
Yeah, exactly, and Priest there too. That's true. So whenever they've partnered with Stuart Haas or any other team that Ford pairs them up with. So we'll give them that there. And at least, in IndyCar, they partnered with Dale Coyne, and they're at least semi-competitive there. So it's not entirely a grift, but for the most part, it is a grift. So yeah, that's my hot take, is that Ross just did everybody a favor, and eventually everybody's going to hate him, right? I mean, he's wrecked half the field at this point, but, just like, George Bush, just got to keep launching preemptive strikes against everybody, and then, eventually, just eliminate the competition, and he'll win every race. So, two things there. Just, punish Rick Ware, and just keep doing what you're doing. So, yeah, that's really what I think of Ross Chastain. Obviously, he's got a background from where he grew up in Florida, and how he raced, and how I guess he got pushed around racing in the whatever the Super Truck Series or whatever it is down in where he's from in Florida, and he got pushed around there, and that's how he learned how to race. And that's what he told Denny Hamlin when they went out to breakfast after their deal at Gateway and everything last year. So yeah, that's Ross Chastain there for you, and damn near almost won it, except Kyle Larson got in the way of him there, and Kyle, I mean, I guess, I don't know. We'll see if NASCAR decides to penalize Kyle for manipulating the race there. I mean, there wasn't a Hendrick. Well, William Byron was there, so maybe William Byron had been closer to him there and passed him for a second, and could have gotten up to Truex on the last restart. Then maybe you could frame that as manipulating the race. What Chase Elliott did a favor to him with Kevin Harvick back in Bristol in 2021. So maybe there's an angle there, but probably not. And everything, and it's going to get weird here with how NASCAR is choosing to penalize drivers for retaliation, like what they did to Denny, which seemed extremely complicated, versus what Corey LaJoy essentially admitted a few weeks ago after Martinsville. So yeah, obviously there's a lot to take away from there, but yeah, that's how it is these days in NASCAR. And I think everybody just needs to own it at this point. But no, I mean, all things aside, I mean, Truex finally gets a win a year and a half later, day after his brother got his first career win. 11 years after Ryan Truex, choked it away to Denny Hamlin in the Xfinity race there, and then many years after Truex finally got his first win in the Cup Series in Dover back in '07. So he bookends it with breaking a winless streak here in the Cup Series. So good for him there. Of course, he talked about Ryan Blaney finished third and was challenging him there on the final, after the final restart and everything. And yeah, good racing for Jack Roush and Brad Keselowski. Of course, Keselowski finishing in 8th, led a couple of laps, and Chris Buescher finishing 9th. So good day for the Roushketeers. Josh Berry subbing. He's the new super sub here in this series. Subbing for Alex Bowman, who got hurt, and people are questioning whether people should do things extracurricularly, and I think they should continue to do that. Just another unfortunate incident, and it's just wildly happenstance that a second Hendrick driver has to set out a number of races to recover from an injury that happened outside the race car. So another audition for Barry, who led 3 laps, finishing in 10th. So and made his way from being a lap down at some point in the race, and now finishing in 10th ahead of his teammate in the number 9. So yeah, good job for Josh Berry there, who probably will be driving the 4 car if the rumors are indicating that's what he's going to be driving next year. So good deal there. Bubba Wallace, 28th to 12th, last car in the lead lap, and had some tire issues throughout at one point in the race. So good recovery there. But yeah, I mean, really didn't catch any of this race. I mean, at work the whole day, and really only saw the highlight on Twitter, and that's how I was able to formulate this take on Ross Chastain, which I think is a good take and everything. And when you frame it in the fact that we should just hate on Rick Ware for collecting checks, then it's more acceptable to view it in that light. So yeah, that's what I think about this race here at Dover, which yeah, didn't look like much, but I mean, at least it was sort of somewhat getting good if the highlights are anything from last 15 laps until Kyle Larson got in the way there. But we'll see how they respond to that later this week, and if Larson takes any further action later on next week at Kansas.
Josh definitely is not a fan of Ross Chastain's latest moves, and a lot of Dirty Mo Media isn't either. So I guess we'll see how that works out in the land of make believe or whatever the hell, Toto's world or whatever the hell, the Dorothy and Toto's world in Kansas this coming weekend. But for somebody else that ran at Dover that had a lot of good mojo going was Ryan Truex, not Junior, going out there and getting his first career Xfinity victory in his 89th start. Very emotional victory for him and in general, for his career to go and get that victory. Dominated the A Game 200, won both stages, led the most laps. It was a clinic by Ryan Truex. Started 12th because of the whatever metric, but he came up and dominated the race. And there was only 10 cars on the lead lap at the end. 5 different leaders, with Austin Hill leading 18 laps, Cole Custer 13, Sheldon Creed 41, but falling back late. And Kyle Weatherman actually led 4 laps in the 0-2 car. But I mean, this race is all about Ryan Truex, Josh. Big victory, family sweep at their actual home track. Not sure what it really means in the grand scheme of things for Ryan Truex. I think he is angling. He said it in Victory Lane and in post-race interviews that I think he's angling to get a full-time seat at JGR in the Xfinity Series. I don't see why that would be hard because they don't have, I think, one or both of those guys that are on that team right now in the full-time seats might be getting a call to move forward. And you have Legacy Motor Club now a part of the mix, which is something that is news as well, that Legacy Motor Club is joining Toyota. So now there's possibly another couple opportunities, expansion opportunities, plus 2311 there, so that's a option. There may be options there for Ryan Truex, but right now it's a big deal for the Truex family and for the younger brother of MTJ to get his first career Xfinity victory.
Yeah, definitely, and his performance, his win in that race definitely is fitting of that race sponsor. He was definitely on his A game there. This past Saturday at Dover Motor Speedway. But I think I agree with you there with this win. Can Ryan Truex parlay this into possibly a full-time ride in Xfinity, whether that's with JGR or not, remains to be seen. But clearly, he's shown what he can do in the past. Of course, 11 years ago ran this race and almost won before Joey Logano in the final laps overtook him there, and now comes back to that same racetrack and wins. So could we see him, possibly get more opportunities here later on this season in this car. I think so, and possibly maybe even next year or even later on this year could he start driving full time for the rest of the year. I think that's also definitely possible, and even if it's not a JGR car, I mean for Ryan Truex, there's another Ryan, in Cup now, Ryan Preece, who won in with a JGR car about all the way back in 2017 after grinding it out for several years in the modifieds and with Xfinity Series and other series. So he's been a talented driver for years. Is finally now getting his chance in Stuart Haas. With a legitimate car and support. So something similar maybe for Ryan Truex, maybe in the near future for him, possibly. We'll have to see, and it all depends on sponsorship there. But yeah, this other than that, this race was basically all Ryan Truex. Of course, you had Josh Berry, Justin Allgaier in the top 10 and finished second and third. We both picked each of those drivers, and still good runs for both of those guys, even though they didn't win or lead laps. So solid points day for those two cars as well, in top 10 for Junior Motorsports. And then you had Cole Custer in seventh, solid run for him as well. So yeah, this race definitely had a lot of stuff happen as far as who can in this series be competitive, and definitely, even though he's not full time, I think Ryan Truex definitely showed he belonged there in this series, along with the rest of the drivers that are up and coming and our mainstay veterans like Allgaier, like Brandon Jones and Daniel Hemrick and whatnot.
Yeah, and I mean for Truex, you look at some of those rides even in other teams, there might be options there as well. Uh, there are. I mean, there's other rumors that have come out with the likes of Josh Berry. So if you can get the money together, the rides might be there for Ryan Truex. But definitely congratulations to him, and a long time coming for him. I know he's waited to had that doubt for 11 years. What would have happened if he had won? But now he doesn't have to worry about that. He's won. So uh, good job by him. Xfinity, of course, takes the weekend off prior to the Darlington Throwback Weekend. Austin Hill doesn't lead, or does he lead the overall? I figure he does. The Austin Hill leads the overall points by 4 over John Hunter Nemechek, and they're the top two in the point standings because of their wins. Chandler Smith is third overall, but he also is third in the playoff standings. Um, then you have Sammy Smith and Jeb Burton, who have both won, and they are currently in. Josh Berry, Justin Allgaier, Cole Custer, Sheldon Creed, Riley Herbst, Daniel Hemrick plus 26 to the cut, and Samir plus 9 over his teammate Brandon Jones. Parker Kligerman having that brutal finish, having a little rough run, a couple of races. Now out and down in 14th, 19 points behind. Ryan Sieg minus 37, Brett Moffitt minus 51. So that's the Xfinity Series at Dover. We're going to go and move on into NFL draft. I mean, I think for you, Josh, you have a lot more to discuss than I do. Most of the conjecture was from the fact that the Niners picked a kicker very early in the draft. So I'll let you go and discuss what you took away from the Jacksonville Jaguars drafting last week, and what you're hoping for as they get into what do you call OTAs and other mini camps and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the draft for the Jacksonville Jaguars was definitely an interesting one. A lot of deals being made early on in the draft. The first and second round, definitely, especially the first round, they traded back twice in the first round, and ended up picking up an offensive lineman, Anton Harrison from Oklahoma. He was a very good offensive tackle there. Of course, I think he could be somebody that they fit in at left tackle. Of course, Jacksonville has Cam Robinson on suspension for the first 6 games of the season after testing positive for PEDs, which we did not know about until the night before the draft. So that's going to be an interesting one. Plus, Robinson's on the last year of his deal, getting paid $17 million. So figure this guy's probably the future for the left tackle position, given the value of Robinson's contract and everything. So definitely for Jags, it solidifies the offensive line, at least as far as depth goes. The rest of the way, you also have on the offensive line Walker Little, who seemingly will be plugged into the right tackle spot, at least for now, and as a replacement for Jawan Taylor. And then second round, of course, they, yeah, well, second round drafting. I'm trying to pull up the draft here. Drafting Antonio Johnson, um, and it was an interesting one there too. They did a bunch of trade backs throughout the draft. They drafted a tight end, Brandon Strange from Penn State, who could be a good depth as well on the tight end side, which they needed. Of course, still have the issue of Evan Ingram not signed long term beyond the franchise tag, so there's that as well. They took Tank Bigsby in the draft as well, so he's definitely a good running back. And we'll see how he does. Definitely like the name as well. Tank is definitely a fitting name for a running back there. The rest of the draft, he drafted a linebacker from Florida, Ventrell Miller, who was pretty old. He has a lot of experience now as a linebacker, so definitely somebody that could be good and could fit in as depth once Foye Luakon ends up leaving, because he only has like I think 2 more years left on his contract, and he could end up being the future beyond those next 2 years. So we'll have to see. But yeah, this is interesting here. I mean, I really wanted to see them draft a cornerback, with one of their top picks. I thought there was a lot of good cornerback talent, especially in the late first round. So definitely wanted to see that happen. They didn't take it cornerback until late in the draft, but definitely they picked up a couple of guys there. Antonio Johnson and Christian Braswell, both corners, or safeties. So that should be an interesting pick there for them. But yeah, definitely a lot of um, trades that they made and picked up a lot of late round picks. So smart deals made by Trent Baalke. But hopefully this draft is ends up performing better than what it looks like on paper, because right now it seems like a lot of the experts are giving them kind of an average grade for this draft. So we'll have to see. And again, like I said last week, Jacksonville's draft for this year is very important to make for them to make a playoff push this year. I mean, obviously the first round all AFC South teams, and second round all took quarterbacks. Of course, Houston Texans selecting Bryce Young, and the Colts selecting or Anthony Richardson. Sorry there, and of course Colts not the Colts, but the Titans taking Will Levis in the early second round. So all these quarterbacks going to be in the AFC South as rookies, so definitely it's going to be a chance for the Jaguars defense to try to feast against rookie QBs. But they're all very, very talented quarterbacks there. So definitely think we'll see what happens this season for Jacksonville. But they have to capitalize on this opportunity. Last two times they made the playoffs, they did not make the playoffs the following year. So it's a very important season for them coming up. But yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing how it comes out as we get closer to the training camp and then preseason, then finally the regular season starting up back in September.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that division, a lot of changes. I mean, Houston getting the number 2 and then the number 3 picks, CJ Stroud and Will Anderson is something that you wouldn't expect from that franchise. Tennessee kind of benefiting from the precipitous drop of Will Levis. And then Indianapolis getting Richardson and amongst other people. The division is definitely in play, but Jacksonville is still the favorite. I would say, even with the draft and Trent Baalke doing Trent Baalke things. The Niners didn't have a whole lot of capital through all the different trades they've made in recent years. Uh, the rumor of what do you call Trey Lance getting traded didn't happen, of course. Even though the specter is still there. Now you got the Niner media going and propping up Sam Darnold while you have Brock Purdy recovering from an elbow, and then you got Trey trying to come back from a leg and an ankle. So typical Niner media. That's what you get. But in terms of the draft, a lot of defense, a lot of depth selections there. And in terms of getting a safety in Jair Brown from Penn State, uh, in the third round, Darrell Luter Jr. from South Alabama, probably someone who's more of a projection play, hopefully to get him in. Maybe it would be a nickel or dime guy. And then as he gets more experience or maybe special teams, and then they can move him up the ladder. Robert Beal Jr., another edge rusher. We're still looking for that guy to stand on the other side of for Nick Bosa. So who knows? Fifth round pick there. D. Winters, a linebacker, and very talented. A lot of great production in TCU. So he's experienced player, and he gets to work with one of the best linebacker duos in Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw. So he's going to get to learn from two great guys there. Um, the Niners then spent, and they also got Jalen Graham from Purdue, um, younger player. So getting him in the 7th round late in the draft, not really sure. It's probably more of a wild card coin flip kind of pick. Some of these picks are probably looking at practice squad. Ronnie Bell, the wide receiver from Michigan, one of two people that the players that the Niners drafted from Michigan, had a lot of productivity over his years at in the maize and blue. The Niners spent 2 picks on tight ends. They got Cameron Latu from Alabama, uh, watch list for the Mackey Award. Um, we'll add to the Polynesian flair of the 49ers. We'll see if he can get on the roster. GK, Ross Dwelly are the top 2 guys. I would say you'd be looking at special teams for sure. Braden Willis from Oklahoma. And I guess getting him this late is probably injury based because he's had good productivity over his career. In 2022, he did play, so I don't know what. Maybe he didn't test out too well, but maybe he's a good blocker. But we'll see what happens with him. It's a whole bunch of projecting and depth selections. I think Robert Beal is probably somebody, and Winters. I think those 2 guys are probably guys to look at initially. But the one that makes the biggest difference, the one that's going to be a day one starter, and the one that brought out plenty of controversy was Jake Moody, the kicker from Michigan, picked 99 overall in round number 3, a compensatory pick for one of their coaches. One of the coaches, or Brand Carthon or whoever, because they're all diversity hires, because the Niners are one of the only teams that seem to do that. Robbie Gould was not coming back. They needed a kicker. They needed somebody that could actually make kickoffs that would go in the end zone instead of having to give up field position like they were with Gould. For whatever reason, Mitch Wishnowsky doesn't do kickoffs. I don't know why. That it's kind of inexplicable to me, especially considering like he boots the hell out of it as a punter. It used to be because he sucked. Now it's like I don't know what he doesn't kick off. But in this case, Jake Moody has a freaking massive leg, and that's going to be something that uh, the Niners are going to utilize. That's something they need, and he's going to play a big part of in terms of what the Niners do in that area. Oh, look at that! Look for Cindy Freeland. Jesus. Um, uh, Going into some of the other drafts for the NFC West, the Arizona Cardinals traded back, and they were able to get Paris Johnson at number 6 overall, the offensive tackle from Ohio State. They were also able to get help in the off the edge with BJ Ujulari, I guess. Syracuse cornerback Garrett Williams. And then on the offensive side of the ball, they got Michael Wilson from Stanford, the wide receiver, John Gaines, the second, the guard from UCLA, and Clayton Tune, the Houston quarterback. Probably at this point would be on the roster, would think he might be projecting to be the backup initially until Kyler Murray returns. Looks like NFL Network uh, is very high on that draft. So I'm trying to see who. Oh, so okay. So we'll go by. So we also have Seattle, and you have the Los Angeles Rams. There ain't a whole lot for the Los Angeles Rams, I would assume. It's Las Vegas, Los Angeles. Oh, they did. Oh, my bad. I guess they did. A lot more later in the draft. Their first pick was in the second round. They got a guard, Steve Avila from TCU. They got defensive line, edge, and D tackle with Byron Young from Tennessee, Wake Forest defensive tackle Kobe Turner. They drafted Stetson Bennett in the fourth round, the quarterback from Georgia. That's a homer pick, I guess, because Matt Stafford is there. A lot of, I mean, I think for in the sake of the Rams, the way that they went down last year, they're hoping a lot of these players are able to make a difference immediately in these spots. Definitely going to be filling the depth side of their roster because they have much older rosters, so something to look at for them as they go along, as they rebuild after getting that Super Bowl couple of years ago. I think Seattle was one of the big winners of the draft. I mean, Philly was another one, of course, but I think Seattle was one of the winners. And Seattle did really well for themselves, getting Devin Witherspoon, the cornerback from Illinois, and Jackson Smith and Jigba, the Ohio State wide receiver, theoretically getting two of the best, maybe top 5 or top 10 players at worst in this draft at 5 and 20. So good job on that. Derek Hall, a rush end from Auburn. Zach Charbonnet, who looks like he's going to be in the mix to share time at the running back position. Some interior players there on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball, middle of the draft. a couple of offensive linemen, a center and a guard, and DT and D end. Then they drafted a safety and a running back there late. So I think those first 4 or 5 picks all could play a big role immediately because of, I think the Seattle line is not exactly the greatest. The running backs are always good for going through and having rookie or younger running backs. Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to have the most open amount of field I think he's had. Even at Ohio State, I don't even think he's going to have some of the windows that he's had and that he's going to get in the NFL because he's next to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. So we'll see how that works for him. And Witherspoon is going to have to defend the likes of Brandon Ayuk and whoever the hell LA has, and DeAndre. Or am I forgetting his name? DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah, who now denies that he requested a trade because nobody wanted him. So he's back with Arizona. So that'll be interesting how that all works. Um, Looks like whoever's doing the grading for NFL Network is pretty kind. He's given out a lot of A's, A minuses, A's. Yeah. So I mean, trying to look through here before we move on to the roundup. Buffalo will kind of go through alphabetical. Bijan Robinson, or that's Atlanta. I went through for it was I told Bijan Robinson drafted 8 overall, and then the running back from Texas and Matthew Bergeron, the offensive guard from Syracuse, in the second. So I mean, they're trying to solidify that offensive line while going and getting themselves that power running back and helping with. I'm trying to remember the Georgia, or what do you call the Atlanta Falcons quarterback's name, the rookie guy um, from
Desmond
last
Riddler.
year. Desmond Ritter from Cincinnati, good pick, and Josh, and so yeah, they're going to be running. It seems like Arthur Smith's going to go to more of a Baltimore style, or some of these teams that go run first and kind of do the RPO game off of that, short to intermediate passing game. Baltimore, they always seem to get the best value at all times. They get Zay Flowers at 22 overall to add to uh, Beckham and Rashad Bateman. So they have, and other players there. Buffalo drafts Dalton Kincaid, which uh, means that they wanted a wide receiver, I think, but they get the tight end, so they're going to do 2 tight end sets, probably with the 2 wide receivers. They might kick out Dalton Kincaid to the outside, Osiris Torrance, the guard, somebody that you would think would be in line possibly for a starting job. Carolina, of course, they drafted Bryce Young, number 1 overall, and then drafted wide receiver Jonathan Mingo from Mississippi at 39. And not a whole lot of picks, but they have their franchise quarterback, and they got him a weapon. Chicago drafted Darnell Wright, the offensive tackle, after trading back twice, and then with Carolina, and then trading from 9 to 10. And then they started making moves on defense, and they're a rebuilding team, of course, but a lot of value. I don't think we're going to know what Chicago really is for probably 2 to 3 years anyway, but it's a solid draft from them. Cincinnati drafts Miles Murphy, the Clemson defensive end. No offensive lineman, surprisingly. But they do address one of their safety issues because both of their safeties left. With Alabama safety Jordan Battle, figure he's going to be plug and play. DJ Turner the second is another guy that's probably plug and playing into their secondary, which got battered in free agency. Yeah, the Browns Browns traded for Elijah Moore. I didn't know that. So the name that stands out from this group to me is, of course, Dorian Thompson Robinson, the quarterback from UCLA, likely to go and play, eventually get into that backup role behind Watson. Maisie Smith, the defensive tackle from Michigan, goes to the Dallas Cowboys. They draft a tight end in the second round, kind of similar to what they usually do. Um, but they're trying to get that. They wanted to get the slab of beef in the middle to stop the run with Philadelphia going and having their running game and the way they run their offense. Washington, of course, with Howell going to want to commit to the run, and then Saquon Barkley for the Giants. Denver didn't have a whole lot of picks, but they drafted Marvin Mims Jr. at number 63 and Drew Sanders, a linebacker, at 67. It's typical of a Sean Payton draft because usually he's not had a lot of picks anyway. Um, so that's we'll see what happens with them. The Detroit Lions, I think, probably got the worst grade. Jahmyr Gibbs, the running back from Alabama, at 12. Jack Campbell, linebacker from Iowa, at 19. And then in terms of second round picks, they drafted Sam Laporta, tight end out of Iowa, which is tight end U, and an Alabama DB in Brian Branch. So two solid programs, players, but maybe the value may have not been there. Day two, I think they probably did a lot better because the second and third round with Laporta, Branch, and Hendon Hooker, who likely projects to be the starter in a year, because they're probably not going to give what do you call Jared Goff break him off for a huge contract. So that we'll see what happens with that. Green Bay drafted Lucas Van Ness at 13 overall. I honestly thought they would draft a wide receiver or tight end in spite, to do it to Aaron, but they didn't. They did draft a tight end in the second round, though, and the third or fourth round. Got Sean Clifford, the quarterback from Penn State, so he'll be working to try to be on the roster, be the backup. And there, so Houston, we mentioned the two big picks was Stroud and Anderson. They got, what a name, Juice Scruggs, the center from Penn State. So now the first four picks were all, or three of the first four picks were spent on the offensive side of the ball. And the three defensive players were two Alabama guys and a TCU guy, two edge rushers and a linebacker. Houston, of course, is, now that they've given up some capital to get to go and get three overall. Pressure is going to be on both Stroud and Anderson to produce immediately. Some of these other guys also going to have to play. Richardson for Indianapolis. We'll see what happens in regards to their quarterback situation if he does play day one, because Shane Steichen is the coach. They did a lot of work on the defensive side of the ball. A lot of depth there. We'll see what happens. Obviously, for Josh, it's those two teams are big ones in terms of the division. So we'll see how they perform. Josh, of course, went through his team. The Chiefs at 31 overall get Felix Anudike Uzoma, an edge rusher, and then they get a pick for Patrick Mahomes and Rashee Rice, the SMU wide receiver. So that's something to look at there. It'll be yet another weapon that Patrick Mahomes can throw to. The Raiders drafted Tyree Wilson, the Texas Tech edge. Some people projected possibly could have went number one, number two, slips to 7. They get the Notre Dame tight end Michael Mayer in the second round. So good value, honestly, for those first two picks. They get it's going to be an interesting season. The way with the arrival of Jimmy Garoppolo as a quarterback, they're going to have to kind of change up the offense a bit in terms of it being more about efficiency and shorter passing versus what they were with Derek Carr. Quentin Johnson at 21, the wide receiver for TCU for the Chargers, will help with their other two wide receivers there. I forget. Mike Williams usually gets hurt, so they need somebody else on the other side of oh, why am I forgetting his name now? The guy for the number 13 for San Diego, Josh. He's always a big time player. I'm forgetting his name. Um,
For San Diego, number 13,
yeah,
Keenan Allen.
and Allen. Yeah, that's it. Thanks. Thank you for that. They drafted Max Duggan late, so we'll see. They want to have a nice young backup to compete with Easton Stick. To see who's going to back up. Uh, what do you call Herbert? Went through that one. Miami doesn't really have a lot. They got a corner and Cam Smith from South Carolina, running back, and Devon Akane, whatever. So Minnesota drafted Jordan Anderson in the first round, wide receiver, to basically give Justin Jefferson all kinds of room. Two USC guys, two LSU guys, a BYU quarterback, Jaron Hall, and running back Dwayne McBride from UAB. New England had a lot of picks. They picked a lot of defense, of course, because it is Bill Belichick. Christian Gonzalez, first pick, 17 overall. Keon White, defensive end at 46. Linebacker Marte Mapu from Sacramento State. First offensive player was a center, Jake Andrews from Troy. Two linemen, a lot of linemen and a lot of defense for New England, trying to respond to the fact that Aaron now is in division. You have Josh Allen with Buffalo, Miami's run and gun system with Mike McDaniel, New Orleans, Brian Brees, a defensive tackle. Then they took Isaiah Foskey, so two linemen at 29 and 40. So they're kind of hedging with the way the division's kind of going, with Tampa Bay with a new quarterback. You have Carolina restarting and New Orleans with a new quarterback in terms of all three of them. And then you also know that Atlanta is going to be a run first team. Carolina figure that it'll be more of a running game too. New York Giants drafted Deontay Banks in the first round of corner. Definitely need that against Philly and Dallas. John Michael Schmitz, a center, so that'll help. What do you call Daniel Jones stay alive? The Jets picked Will McDonald the fourth at 15, and then got a couple offensive linemen and a running back for Aaron. Philly was one of the big winners, of course. They went and got Jalen Carter at 9 overall. I mean, he probably is a murderer, but he is likely one of the three best players in this draft. I would think arguably you can make the case that the other two best players were drafted by Houston. Then they draft Nolan Smith, his teammate. I guess if you want to run against that defensive line, good luck. If you want to watch your quarterback get killed like I had to in January by their defensive line, it's more likely now with those picks. Pittsburgh goes out there and drafts Broderick Jones at 14 overall, the offensive tackle, and they need offensive line. They've needed offensive line help for years. The Homer pick, the sentimental pick, Joey Porter Jr. goes to Pittsburgh. His dad made his name as a linebacker in Pittsburgh for nearly a decade. So now his son, a cornerback, will be back there with Minka Fitzpatrick and others to help the Steelers try to get back up in the division, which, of course, right now is, I think, a 3-horse race between Cincinnati, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh. Mentioned the Niners, of course, mentioned Seattle, Tampa Bay, Kalijah Cansey, the defensive tackle, at 19, and Cody Mauch, the North Dakota State guard. A lot of interior focus, trying to solidify spots, give themselves a little bit of extra depth, knowing that they've had issues with injuries. Josh mentioned Skronsky and Will Levis for Tennessee. Those guys are all going to have a big part. The whole entire draft was focused on offense, probably because their offense was an absolute abomination last year. Um, so that whoever their quarterback's going to be, and also knowing that the life on Derrick Henry starting to go, um, trying to get wide receiver help so they can run an NFL offense in 2023 instead of 1983 will probably help their cause. The Washington General Redskin Commanders drafted two DBs with their first two picks, Emmanuel Forbes from Mississippi State at 16 and Jartavius Martin at 47. I was going to turn him into one of those Key and Peele names there. Okay. Done with that. We'll see how that all goes, what they do with these guys as we get into mini camps and training camp and the whole bit next time on episode 168. Roundup. Let's get into it. 6 hours of Spa was a hectic one. A lot of crashes. Ferrari crashed one of their cars. Cadillac crashed one of their cars. But as per usual, Toyota wins. They have a 1-2 finish. And we'll go through that. Conway, Kobayashi, Lopez win by 16.63 seconds over Sebastian Buemi, Brendan Hartley, and Rio Hirakawa, their teammates. The Ferrari number 51 finished on the lead lap and in third overall. And the Penske Porsche number 5 with Dane Cameron, Michael Christensen, Fred Makowiecki finished fourth on the lead lap. Pierre Guidi, Collado, Giovinazzi in the 51 Ferrari. The Chip Ganassi number 2, the regular car in the WEC, Bamber, Lynn Westbrook finished a lap down. The Jota Sport Porsche 963 with Antonio Felix da Costa, Will Stevens, and Yaya Fei finished a lap down in their debut with their 963 first customer car. So that was a good job by them with what little testing they've had. In LMP2, Rui Andrade, Robert Kubica, Louis Delatraz, the winners in the 41 over United Autosports 23, Josh Pearson, Tom Bloomquist, Oliver Jarvis. Schmiekowski, Scherer, and Costa round out the podium there. They finished 7th, 8th, and 9th overall. And get through some of those other hypercars, couple laps down. The Peugeot, first Peugeot, the Glickenhaus. Both Peugeots, actually. In GTM, the Ferrari number 83, Luis Perez Companec, Leilu Wadu, and Alessio Rivera get the victory over the Corvette Racing, Ben Keating, Nicholas Verona, Nicky Katzberg, and then the Aston Martin of Ahmad Al-Harthi, Michael Dinan, and Charlie Eastwood. American Ryan Hardwick in his number 88 was Zachary Robichon, and Harry Tinknell finished fourth in class. The Iron Dames team of Bovey, Gadding, and Frey finished fifth. So we'll see in terms of how the WEC now they'll take the break prior to the 24 hours of Le Mans. So it is a 20. Yeah, it'll be the 24 hours of Le Mans. Will be the next race for them. I'm trying to, because of course they don't bother to update it on this. So yeah, they didn't even put it in there. Yeah. So now the biggest race of the year, most prototypes they've had in a long time. It's going to be cool to see that at Le Mans. MotoGP and Moto2 at Jerez. Pecco Bagnaia beats Brad Binder. There was accident between Fabio Quartararo and Miguel Oliveira on the first lap. Had a red flag, serious incident there. But hopefully for both of those guys, they'll Oliveira had to take a dislocated shoulder. Quartararo walked away, but he was deemed at fault for the accident. KTM's get 2 bikes on the podium. Bagnaia gets the victory over Binder and his teammate Jack Miller. Jorge Martin in 4th, and Alicia Spargo for Aprilia in 5th. Danny Pedrosa making a wild card appearance on the 3rd KTM, finished 7th. Had a nice weekend for sure. The multi-time uh, champion in the Moto 2, Moto 3, and won a lot of Grand Prix, finished 2nd in the championship a lot. Top Honda was Taka Nakagami. Quartararo was able to recover and finish 10th, but it was a nightmare kind of weekend for him at Jerez. In Moto 2, the winner of that race, gotta update it and put it there, was Sam Lowe's. Long drought broken for Sam Lowe's, a British rider, over Pedro Acosta by 2.84 seconds. Alonso Lopez finished 3rd. Tony Arbolino, Aaron Canet, your top 5. Jake Dixon, the British rider, in 6th. Joe Roberts finished 14th. Sean Dillon Kelly didn't finish the first lap. Involved in a first lap crash. So unfortunate for him. Still having the struggles here are on the world stage, unfortunately. But hopefully, maybe things will turn around sooner rather than later for his sake, or he might end up going back to super bikes or Moto America super bikes like some of his other brethren in that class, like Cameron Bobier. NHRA, they had the 4 wide nationals at Charlotte, and in top alcohol dragster, Mike Coughlin was the winner over Anthony Wayne Stewart and 2 others. We'll get into that here in a second. I'll go with that. In top alcohol dragster, he beats Tony Stewart. Tony Stewart's the runner-up. And then Julie Natus and Cody Crone also made the final there. I'm curious as to how fast those guys in the Top Fuel Harley. So both of them smoked the tires. Wow, that's terrible. Pro Mod, we'll get into. Yeah, Justin Bond was a winner there over J.R. Gray Jr., Ricky Smith, and Jason Lee. Pro Stock Motorcycle, Gage Herrera has started the season 2 for 2. He beats defending champion Matt Smith and Gage's teammate Eddie Krawick and Steve Johnson to get that victory. So, and our first final card, 1-0 overall finals. Yeah. So, I don't know. That looks like a misprint on that update there. On Pro Stock, Derek Kramer gets a victory over Dallas Glenn, who's been on a heater recently. Matt Hartford and Fernando Quadra Jr. Robert Height, the winner over Alexis DeJoria, Ron Capps, and John Force in Funny Car. So a double win for John Force Racing since Austin Prock took the victory in Top Fuel over Leah Pruitt, Josh Hart, and Steve Torrance. The next race for NHRA will be in a few weeks' time. It'll be 2 weeks' time at Route 66 Raceway for the Route 66 Nationals. Supercars at Wanneroo this past weekend. The Repco Supercars Championship. Still a struggle for the Ford camp, though. Not been ideal by any stretch of the imagination. Ford has only won once this year. That was the first race of the season with Cam Waters, and that was because of a penalty, to be fair. Otherwise, it would be the Erebus Coca Cola team and the Red Bull team that has won every race. In race 7 was Shane Van Gisbergen. Race 8 was Will Brown. And race 9 was Brock Feeney. So both Red Bull drivers win. Will Brown for Erebus gets the victory there. The standings right now in the Repco Supercars Championship. Go over there. That's what I meant to do. Brody Kostecki, the teammate of Will Brown, leads the points by 100 over Chaz Mostert, who is the leading Ford driver. Shane Van Gisbergen, 136 points back in third. Will Brown, 171 points back in fourth. Brock Feeney rounding out the top 5. David Reynolds, Cam Waters, Andre Heimgartner, Will Davidson, Jack LeBrock round out the top 10. So to look for how many Fords, 4 Fords in the top 10. Next race will be the Tasmania Super Sprint Couple, 2 weeks' time as well for them on the Supercars circuit. Get a Indy next, Indy NXT, whatever the hell you want to call it. Nobody's doing run-ins though in Indy NXT. The spotter guide, the results for the race on Sunday. See Christian Rasmussen, who started from pole, led all 35 laps, gets the victory over Nolan Siegel and Toby Sowery. Enam Ahmed and James Rowe, your top 5. Ernie Francis Jr. finished 8th. Jamie Chadwick, 11th. Jagger Jones, 12th. Hunter McElray, 13th. And then the rest of the drivers were involved in some sort of issue. Kiffin Simpson got DQ'd. Wow. That included Lewis Foster and Matteo Nannini, Jacob Abel, and Reese Gold there in Indy next. F2 was at Baku last week, so we'll get into that. Ollie Bierman got the double last week, both the sprint victory and the feature victory for him from pole. So credit to Ollie Bierman, the Prema driver, gets the victory. So the feature race, we'll get into the full results so that I can get both. So sprint was Ollie Bierman over Victor Martins, Dennis Auger, Teo Pocher, Frederick Vesti, your top 5. Kush Miney, the Indian driver, 6. Brad Benavides, the American, gets his best finish so far of the season, 7th. Jack Crawford in 8th, the American who got his first podium. The last at he did, I think he got it in the feature race. Jehan Deruvala, 9th. Juan Manuel Correa was 13th. In the feature, that was at Australia. Is what it was. Ollie Bierman, the victor over Enzo Fittipaldi and Teo Pocher. Victor Martins and Frederick Vesti round out the top 5. Kush Miney gets another 6th. Jack Crawford, 10th. Juan Manuel Correa, 14th. Jan Deruvala, 15th. Brad Benavides DNF'd 8 laps into the race, so unfortunate for him there. The standings have Teo Pocher leading by 5 points over Frederick Vesti, 7 over Ayumu Iwasa. Bierman, with his double win, makes up for having 3 points in 3 races in 3 rounds so far, so gets a 38-point haul. Is now in 4th, 2 points out of Kush Miney in 5th. Jan Deruvala is in 9th. Crawford and Juan Manuel Correa are in 16th and 17th. They don't get points for the sprint at 7th. So Benavides is one of 3 drivers with Amory Cordial and Roy Nasane who have not scored points so far in 2023.
The World Superbikes will be going on this week at Barcelona. Um, it's been a clinic by Alvaro Bautista so far this year, and it seems like it's going to be more of the same going into this round. He has a near 50, 20, 54, 56 point lead on Toprak Raskatlioglu and a 70 point lead on Andrea Locatelli, nearly 100 on Axel Bassani and 101 on Johnny Ray. Garrett Gerloff buried in 15th. And that's on his BMW. Going back the race at Assen, he won. Bautista swept all 3 rounds. The race one and sprint race were the same podium of Bautista, Ray, and Raskatlioglu. And race 2 was Raskatlioglu in second and Locatelli in third. We'll see what happens. Bautista dominating in World Superbikes. See if that continues to be the case. And finally, we'll get into the Monaco E-Prix. It is May, so it's time for Monaco. And cars are probably a little more suited for this racetrack. Definitely a good thing to see. The point standings leading in, it's gotten tighter after the doubleheader in Germany. You had Verline now is still the leader, but he's only scored 20 points in the last 3 rounds or last 4 rounds, while Nick Cassidy has come off of a win in round 8, the second race in Germany, and then prior to that, a 5th, a 2nd, and a 3rd. Jean-Eric Verne, former champion of this series in the DS Penske car, is now in 3rd. So Cassidy's 4 points back. Verne is 19 back, but is finished in the top 5 through the last 4 races. Jake Dennis, after a really brutal run, got a second place in the second race in Berlin to get himself back in the mix. He's in 4th. Mitch Evans, coming off of 2 victories in Brazil and in the first race in Berlin, got a 4th. He's in 5th place. So tight battle there, 1st and 2nd. Then you have 3 guys that are clustered again from 3rd to 5th. And then other good battles, Antonio Felix da Costa, Sam Bird, and Sebastian Buemi are all pretty close as well. And I'm trying to go through here. Only driver, Kelvin van der Linde is not a full-time driver. So for Freins and Muller, the app team, they finally get off the schneid. Eduardo Mortara's had a nightmare year from Maserati. Same goes for Sasha Fenitraz. And then some of these other teams like Nissan, Mahindra, et cetera, et cetera. Josh, maybe we'll get you back in here to start the conversation. The Grand Prix of Miami Formula One race here this weekend at the Miami International Autodrome, which is just obnoxious to say, considering they're just driving around Hard Rock Stadium. So I mean, last year Max Verstappen won, but there wasn't very many times he didn't win. And as it stands right now, I would have a hard time in believing that that'll change. The one thing that would go and change that around, though, is Sergio Perez is really good on temporary circuits. They've run two of the 3 races on temporary circuits so far this year have been won by Sergio Perez, the other one by Max Verstappen. In terms of this race last year, just to recap, Max Verstappen led 48 of the 57 laps. Charles Leclerc started on pole, led 8 laps. Carlos Sainz was in second and led one. And that was it. That was the podium. Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz. Sergio Perez finished fourth. George Russell and Lewis Hamilton finished fifth and sixth. Bottas, Ocon, Alexander Albon and Williams. Stroll was 10th for Aston. Fernando Alonso was just outside of the points by like 100th or 10th or just over a tenth of a second. So there was two retirements there was issues for a few of these cars, but only 2 or 3 official retirements: Gasly, Norris, and Zhou. One full course caution or full safety car was caused by the incident between Lando Norris and Pierre Gasly. So I guess the easy question is which Red Bull is going to win? And otherwise, what are we going to see? Can Mercedes perform here before they start getting their upgrades? Will Ferrari have any type of answer for Red Bull? Or is it just, rinse and repeat Red Bull?
Well, I mean, I think, this weekend, we've already had FP1 and FP2 and qualifying, at least qualifying pace in FP2 with Max Verstappen leading the speed charts there, starting or placing first in the practice. Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc followed behind him there. So, I mean, I think Verstappen is the one to beat this weekend. Of course, his teammate did win on the temporary circuits, but I feel like Verstappen, he's already won at this circuit before last year, and I think he can repeat and go 2 for 2 at this Grand Prix. So I think the ball is in literally in his hands there as they go around the stadium in Miami. So we'll see how he does. You talked about Mercedes, and Russell and Hamilton led FP1 there. So maybe in race trim, maybe they have a little bit of better pace there to potentially hang around in the top 5 or something like that. Maybe Russell or Lewis Hamilton can challenge for the points. Remember last year they did finish in the points last year, but really they were only battling among themselves in this race. So we'll see if they're able to really compete amongst each other. Charles Leclerc could be competitive, but he also had an incident in FP2, so he could have something with a different car this weekend, or with a after running into the barriers. So definitely that's gonna be an issue for Leclerc this weekend if he can kind of recover from those incidents this weekend. So look out for that as they qualify the car. If he can maintain the same type of pace that he's shown so far this weekend, and of course some of the other teams. Of course, Alonso has had a really good start to the year, and qualified, or he finished 5th in practice this afternoon, so it should be interesting there. And of course, also had the 7th best time in the first session. So definitely both the Aston Martins should continue to perform as strong as they have performed so far this season. So definitely think they could be in another. I don't know if they'll finish podium again. Of course, Alonso started off with a couple podiums, but I don't know if they'll be able to continue that streak. But I definitely see them continue getting points throughout this race, and definitely continue their good start to the year. Should be interesting though for some of the other teams and kind of the back markers here in this field. Of course, Haas, of course, Nico Hulkenberg finished 9th place in FP1. Should be interesting. Magnussen FP2 finished 12th. So be on the lookout for Haas, of course, if they do finish in the top 10 in the points this weekend. Chipotle has promised to give away 10,000 free burritos, which you can text to 888-222 to get a free burrito entree there from Chipotle. So that should be a good deal if that can happen. But don't know if Haas really has it in them to run top 10 to finish in the points. I think it would take a lot of strategy and a little bit of luck from some of the other cars, whether they drop out due to mechanical failures or if we have an incident that caused on the racetrack where we see a potential safety car full course caution. So be on the lookout for that, of course, and definitely think it's going to be all Verstappen. So obviously said Verstappen winning this race this weekend. I'm going to say Charles Leclerc finishes in second, and then teammate Sergio Perez finishes in third on the podium. So that's what I'll go with. Pretty easy lineup there. Really hard to fade against it, I feel like.
Yeah, I'll go and for the sake of just doing differently, I'll just go with Perez. But I do feel like you have the right one there with fish lips. Uh, the qualifying pace is pretty tough to go and beat, especially in on a circuit that is as goofy as this one is, having nearly 4 tenths on the Ferraris, um, 4.5 on Leclerc, nearly 4 on Carlos Sainz, and he had almost a half a second on Sergio Perez. That's pretty daunting task. Alonso is a little bit off, not as fast as he was in the first few races of the season, but they're up there, essentially the third best team. Lando Norris snuck in there, and you have Alpine. Um, Alexander Albon actually showed a little bit of qualifying pace, but the race pace is pretty mediocre. Logan Sargent struggled 19th and 20th in practice. The American running in one of three American based Grand Prix, of course, this year. The one closest to home for him, a Florida guy, uh, trying to get something out of this weekend. It doesn't look so great at the moment for Logan Sargent, though. Um, didn't know about that Chipotle deal, but hoping that Kevin Magnussen can turn it around, or Hulkenberg can get that car into points. It would be nice. Even I'll go to Chipotle for a free one. Um, I'll go with Perez, Verstappen, and Sainz as my top three. So let's get over here. Let's do the picks. So F1 Grand Prix of Miami. Josh picks Fish Lips to win, and then Perez. You put Perez in second, or you put Leclerc in second, and Leclerc, Checo. And then Phil picks Checo to win, Fish Lips, FL second, and Sainz. I am Carlos Sainz, a driver for Ferrari. So we'll see what happens if he can be a smooth operator in Miami, if he can have Pitbull come by and show him some dance moves, because he tried to show dance moves to Howard Stern and it definitely did not work. Mainly because Howard Stern's like a pelican, and he's like 90. Yeah, so we'll go on from that Formula One, and we'll see what happens. Talk about episode 168 for sure. Also, be on Grid Talk this weekend for the recap. So, for the fans that listen to Grid Talk and you came here, thank you. For those who, and some of our friends over there who help us out, and we help them out. So, great group there. Because of the later start times and stuff, it'll be more focused on the North American group. So I'll be on the post race show. I think there's a couple of North American based podcasters on the qualifying show. So definitely tune in for that. Busy time for Formula One coming up now that they came off of that break. Cup and the trucks at Kansas Speedway this coming weekend, or this weekend since it's already there. We'll go into the entry list. I mean, there's a lot of news, of course, with throwbacks for the Darlington Throwback Weekend. You have news for North Wilkesboro, the 75 list. Nonek is actually going to come back and drive for Rick Ware. Don't know why, unless he's desperate for money, but I don't think he is. 36 drivers for 36 spots in the Heart of America 200, which will probably be a general bore fest. There will be some different players in this. I'm trying to go. I wanted the entry list. There you go. So the entry list here, you're gonna have Tony Breidinger making her Truck Series debut with Victoria's Secret on the truck. Makes a lot of sense. In terms of trying to get back, too many pages. Yeah, Chris Reitman 02, Nick Sanchez, of course, looking for that first win. Johnny Sauter replacing, I'm forgetting what his name was, Honeycutt in the 04 for the rest of the season for some reason. And go through some of these those are some of the regulars, of course. Corey Himes won this year. Spencer Boyd in the 12. Eckes is a winner this year. Nick Leitz will be in the number 20 for Young's Motorsports. Josh Rayum driving the 22 for AM Racing again. Mason Maggio driving for Rayum in the 33. Ross Chastain in the 41 to join his tall buddy in being Wreckham. They need a new tag team name because they both do the same stupid shit. I guess it could be Dumb and Dumber, but I don't think that it's just it. We'll see. We need a name for those two. Maggot Moron Tim Vines will be in the 47 truck, driving around to nowhere, and his crew chief will be Memphis Villarreal, who drove, I think, the last race, so tells you all you need to know. Kyle Busch will be driving in the 51. Tyler Hill instead of Timmy Hill driving the 56. Justin Carroll in the number 90 Toyota. Brennan Poole driving his second G2G rent-a-wreck this weekend. Yeah, I'm going to pick Kyle Busch. Why not? It's there. I'll pick Kyle Busch. My wild card pick for this weekend in the Truck Series, I have to go into the point standings because I'm not crazy enough to pick Tony Breidinger. She can't drive a hot nail through snow, but she could probably swallow a load. And load swallowers, Haley Deegan, that's another one. Trying to see here. Went through that. Truck Series news. Trying to get the point standings right now. So get through all that. Jay Garcia. Now Kate Honeycutt is done. So is it 22? Yeah, 21 guys have driven every race. 21 drivers have driven every race if you count Timmy Hill and Jake Garcia. I'm going to say 22 because Garcia couldn't drive at Daytona. So top 11. Who am I going to take as a wild card selection? I mentioned Jake Garcia's name, and I'm going to go with him. He's run pretty solid. The McAnally team has had good stuff this year. Him and Christian Eckes have a lot of pace. So opportunity for Jake Garcia to get another solid finish that in that tight rookie battle that they're having here this year in the Truck Series. What say you, Josh, in regards to the Kansas Truck Series event?
Yeah, I mean, easy pick there, Kyle Busch, for you. But I'm gonna go. I mean, I was gonna go with him, but you went with him as well. So, you know what? I will go with Ben Rhodes. He's a solid mile and a half guy. Has been for many years. So I think he can. Kyle Busch isn't as strong as what we think he can be in this in this weekend. Which, of course, his last start in the Truck Series actually didn't win in Las Vegas. Finished in fourth place at the mile and a half there in Las Vegas, and well. Uh, Yeah, or no, I'm sorry. He did win. I clicked on his Xfinity. So he did win the Xfinity series, or the truck series that I was looking at the Xfinity results, but he did win the truck race, straight from the pole. So that one actually should be easy then for him to win. But I'll go with Ben Rhodes just to be different, and he's been very good historically on mile and a halfs. In his career in the truck series, for me, wild card. I mean, I'm just gonna keep saying it, as a wild card, but Raja Karuth, this is another mile and a half for that team where they could potentially improve on their results from uh, earlier in the season. Of course, finishing 29th place at Las Vegas, but you know could have a good showing here this weekend at Kansas. And it's a very very friendly mile and a half track to young drivers. So we'll see if he's able to crack at least the, let's say, the top 10 or the top 12 here this weekend. So we'll go with those two as my wild cards and winner.
So Roger Carruth. Uh, I think I would say that Raja would be a good one here in a few weeks' time when they go to North Wilkesboro, because I'm not sure if he's driven there in a late model or anything, but uh, driving that Wendell Scott truck, and he's doing it at Darlington, but I think he'll be someone to look at there at North Wilkesboro with his short track prowess. But yeah, he keeps on picking up momentum. He's 18th in points, so he's ahead of some of the regulars right now. What is it? One, two, three, four drivers that have driven every race, and then you got a couple drivers that missed a race. I mean, Tim Hill is going to miss another one here. He's only 5 points behind Colby Howard. So, I mean, obviously they're all looking for wins. So, um, I think the one guy that probably is due for a win is Nick Sanchez. I would I would think he would be the outlier guy, another Kyle Busch Motorsports truck in the guise of Rev Racing to see if they can go out there and get that victory on Saturday night. Advent Health 400, 36 teams and drivers, all the chartered entries. So we'll go top to bottom. Ross Chastain, sponsored by the race sponsor, Advent Health. Austin Cindric with Freightliner on his car. Bet MGM on the Dillon car. I think that's an MGM casino they have over there, or whatever the hell. Or I forget what the hell casino it is over there that Brian France is involved in, BZF. Uh, Bush Light for the Farmers for Kevin Harvick. King's Hawaiian. Uh, I don't know what that means, that part. For Keselowski, Fraternal Order of Eagles for Corey LaJoy, Cheddars for Kyle Busch, Unifirst for William Clyde Elliott II, Menards and Moen Faucets, the way that Larry loves them Moen Faucets. Rush Truck Centers for Chase Briscoe. Brennan Poole be back in the 15 this weekend for Rick Ware. AJ Allmendinger with Action Industries. Reese's, Fine Foods for Martin Truex, Sirius XM for Christopher Bell, Bubba driving a Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar, Liberty University for Byron, Celsius for Justin Haley, Speedy Cash again for Todd Gilliland, and Tyler Reddick with McDonald's. Got I'm trying to see Dylan's Kraft Mac and Cheese for Richard. Josh Berry back again in the 48 for Hendrick Motorsports, Ally Chevrolet. JJ Ailey in the 51. Ferris Mowers for Ty Dillon. Ziegler Auto Group for Josh Balicki, and Worldwide Express run of the 3 races they're going to run with Daniel Suarez this year. So, Josh, you get to open the deal. Who are you looking at for this weekend to Kansas to win and wild card possibilities?
I mean, well, this year, based on last year, I mean, it's hard not to look at the Toyota camp, both 2311 and Joe Gibbs Racing. But then, I think you also have to include the Hendrick guys, William Byron and Kyle Larson. So far, we only had one real mile and a half race this year in Las Vegas, and Byron dominated that race. But the Toyotas were up there as well. Bubba Wallace, Chris Bell, Martin Truex in the top 10, Denny Hamlin in 11th. So, it's really hard to, go against any of those teams and drivers. But you know what? I'm going to go with Tyler Reddick in the 45. So make it 3 in a row for the 45 car, winning at Kansas this weekend. They've been pretty strong at this track the last year, of course, with the 45 renumbered, 23 from Bubba Wallace, and of course the 45 will likely be the final career victory, unfortunately, for Kurt Busch, who, by the way, named to the top 75 drivers along with his brother Kyle. So, the anniversary of Kurt's last win and Kurt being named to the top 75. Let's go with Tyler Reddick as the winner this weekend. And wild card, it's hard to go against it too, but I'm honestly gonna go double Toyota here, and I'll pick Bubba Wallace as the wild card. So tag team with 2311 for my picks here.
That's a good pick because, of course, he won in the fall, as you mentioned, and he's good there. He likes the track. Absolutely whooped the field last fall in the race there. So right now, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. So 32 drivers. So it's a 16. Bubba right now is 21st in points. So definitely a solid choice as a wild card pick, considering the 45 is your choice to win the race. And for me, I'm trying to look it up here just based on Kansas Speedway, utilizing, of course, Racing Reference. In the last 10 races at Kansas Speedway, best average finish, Martin Truex Jr., 6.8. Larson only ran 8 races, of course, but 7.4. Denny Hamlin, 7.5. William Clyde Elliott, 8.4. Alex Bowman, 9.3. But he's not in the race, of course, this weekend. Kevin Harvick would then be 5th. So you got the Hendrick guys. You got Toyota represented there. You got some of these other guys. You got the Busch brothers there, and Christopher Bell, Pizza Face. I mean, I think Josh's call of Toyota or Hendrick makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to go the other way then, and I'm going to pick William Clyde Elliott II to get his first victory of 2023. needs it considering his point standings. Same kind of like with all the damn penalties they got, Hendrick Motorsports, and they rescind them. But yeah, Chase Elliott gets a victory there, gets himself locked into the playoffs. I think it's he's in a good place to do it, and he'll go out there and get that one. Right now, Clyde is 29th in points, still ahead of 4 drivers that have run every race this year. So I would be pretty embarrassed if I'm one of those people. Yeah, and 2 of them are the Dylans. And one has a stupid bowl cut, and one is Harrison Burton. So, yeah, they all suck. And so yeah, Clyde is my winner there. And wild card, I have to hedge with a Toyota. And it pains me to say this because I can't stand them. But Keebler Gibbs will be my wild card. He's had solid runs here recently. He's keeping pace with his veteran teammates. Obviously, his teammates are right now 2nd, 4th, and 7th in points. And you have, 4 Toyotas in the top 7 in points as well. So he needs to pick up the pace, definitely, and so does Bubba. I think it's a weekend for both of those guys to do so. So we'll let's input that over there. Phil picks WCE 2 to win, and Keebler Gibbs wild card. We'll see if those work out. Definitely don't bet. It's not a money thing. We just make our picks and just based on whatever information we have there. And we'll see what happens next week on episode. And we'll let you know on episode 168 of the GSP. Josh, it's your time. It's your sim segment. Let us know what's going on in the world of iRacing gaming. I think F1 2023 put out a preview. So, amongst other things. So, let us know what's going on in the sim side of things.
Yeah, of course, SimSide. Last week, did Indianapolis Motor Speedway, right? The road course with the GT4 Challenge Series, racing the BMW M4 GT4. Also did the Formula Ford Series at Lime Rock Park, which was interesting there as well. So we ran a bunch with the GT4 a couple of times during the past last week, which was a really good experience there. Definitely like the Indianapolis road course. It has good flow between the S's and heavy braking zones with long straights. Of course, going down the famous front straight and then going down the back straight on the road course there. So it's got a good ebb and flow to it. Of course, not sure if it produces the most entertaining racing in real life, but certainly enjoy driving around that one. And then Lime Rock Park with the chicane and the Formula Ford, pretty interesting result there as well this week. Doing Rudkinson Motor Center at the Formula Ford Rookie Series, and then ran IndyCars at Homestead, Miami. Good runs overall, and all those grabbed a podium in one of them at Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. So definitely getting better on the road racing side of things, and definitely enjoying that side. But yeah, I haven't seen too many news as far as F1 23, but I imagine it's probably not too different from F1 22. So I especially, I think F1 21, when I picked that one up, it was interesting playing an F1 game for the first time. And then F1 22, of course, had the new F1 Formula car in that series, and then of course this year F1 23. I don't really know how much different it is, and hopefully the physics improve and hopefully it's good and stable as far as online racing goes, which sometimes has been an issue in the F1 games as far as getting a good field and being in amongst good competitive racers. Similar to how iRacing kind of balances the field overall in terms of in terms of their skill level in the game. So yeah, I mean that's on the horizon. Also on the sim side of things, the E-Racer GG series, so that's Parker Kligerman, Landon Castle's Sim Racing League. They did announce that uh, the 4th of July Firecracker 400 is back on the horizon. Actually, don't know what date it's going to be held on exactly, but should be early July, more or mid July at the latest. They haven't announced the exact date, but we'll let you know when that happens. But hopefully, I'll be able to compete in that one as long as I don't have any business trips or anything like that in the middle of July. Hopefully, be able to compete in that one, run the 87 car. Of course, I have a feeling Dale Jr. will be in that one because I know he said previously he'd tried running that one for as long as they held it. So hopefully be able to race against Dale Jr. Again like I did a couple years ago, and I think Kyle Busch was in it last time. So gonna be a good chance to run up against the um, stars of the NASCAR Cup Series and Xfinity Series, and legends like Dale Jr. So hopefully be able to do that. And I think it's a $10,000 cash prize for the field. So I don't know the exact payouts, but definitely think for first place it'd be getting a good amount of money there. So should be a lot of fun, and looking forward to being able to do that as long as free otherwise. So there's that on the sim side things. Of course, did want to mention in my exploits last week as well. Go-karting at Orlando Kart Center, which I did again with a couple friends. Felt like I got better this time from last time as far as lap to lap stability. Last time I really overran the corners a lot, although my lap times did not improve from before, because I think when I went there in January, my best lap was like a 70.5 second lap, and then this time it was a 71 and I think 2/10. So I don't think it was necessarily myself. I just think is probably the cars and performance stuff a little bit slower than last time. Tires as well probably worn out. So I definitely felt like I performed better as far as driving the carts and everything. And last time spun out a lot because I locked up the brakes and uh, spun out. This time a couple of times where I did wipe out, but then for the most part, like if I locked up the brakes, I would just counter steer to the right and steer into the spin. So and then quickly recovered, so I didn't really lose too much time and was able to keep it going without spinning out or anything like that. So I was able to do that. Of course, also one of my friends that I go with is pretty good as well, so was actually able to practice my racecraft against him and a couple of other people trying to get by. So really enjoyed that. There's one time where got bumped out of the way by somebody, and then they ran out into the grass. So on corner exit, they ran over the curb on corner exit and went way wide into the grass, but somehow they were able to still keep going somehow. So I don't know how that happened, but I was really trying hard to keep up with this guy after he bumped me out of the way, but wasn't able to get up really close to him to give it back to him there. So I wanted to, but couldn't get up there. Somehow he was able to run way wide and stay ahead, but that's how it is sometimes. But did that, and then of course last Saturday, it's already been a week almost, but I also did the Tour of Destruction in Orlando, seeing that after doing go-karting, and of course saw a lot of wild things there. School bus figure eight racing, which is awesome. Seeing school buses run figure eight, and of course the short bus one. To no surprise, because they have a longer or a shorter wheelbase than the larger school buses, and they're able to get around there a lot quicker than than big school buses. But we did see a couple of school buses get wiped out in the middle of it. One got spun out right in front of us, and that was an interesting sight to see. As of course you see the chassis roll, not actually roll over, but you can see the chassis roll when it's spun out, and then they have to get around and get it right on the right track and everything. So that was pretty interesting. Saw push car racing, which is basically one car in front, I think either turned off or in neutral, and then car behind him pushing. So essentially like tandem racing. So that was pretty interesting there. Saw one car painted as Lightning McQueen, and then they had a tow truck painted as Mater from Cars, pushing around with Mater pushing Lightning McQueen. So that was pretty funny. See that. And then we saw skid plate racing, which we talked about. I know I messaged you about that as well, and it's pretty funny as well. You basically you have no tires on the rear, front wheel drive cars, going around drifting in the turns and everything, seeing sparks flying all over the place, a lot of smoke, a lot of tire rubber debris trying to fly in the air, and then you get it all in your hair and your ears and all that stuff, and then you gotta close your eyes for a minute because there's too much smoke, too much tire debris and everything. So a lot of fun there, pretty entertaining. Hopefully be able to see that again later on in the year. I think they do it twice a year, because I think this is like a traveling circus or tour or whatever that goes around. So we'll see later on in the year if they come back or not. So yeah, that was pretty fun, pretty interesting. Trying to think if I saw anything else there. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. And then also one of the interesting things I thought that I saw about that was a lot of the junkyard cars there were third generation Acura TLs, which is what I drive. Acura is a really good car, of course, but it was interesting seeing third gen car from 2004 through 2008 competing in these races and actually performing quite well compared to the rest of the junkyard cars there. I think they had one 2010 era TL, I think last gen before they ended the car competing there as well, and looked like he was pretty fast as well. So yeah, a lot of fun there as well. So that's my other update there. I wanted to talk about that. Of course, lots of fun things in life and also in sim racing coming up. So of course. Of course, when I do stream, which hopefully for the Firecracker 400 in a couple months in July, be able to stream that as long as I'm here. You know, that's you can follow my stream at Twitch TV/usailor2 and go in there, watch all my streams and all my stuff. And hopefully you can watch and comment or whatever and follow along, and hopefully put on an entertaining show. So go in there and watch that. Of course, Twitter at JP Huffine. Of course, that's where we'll have all my it takes and all my opinions, and have everything I want to say or share with people. And of course, we'll share the show on there as well. And then of course, YouTube channel, which at Gripster Podcast, go on our YouTube and see our faces, see our videos and everything, listen to the podcast that way if you want to. So go on there, subscribe, and like our videos and all that stuff. So yeah, of course, thanks Phil for coming back on, and thanks for hosting the show and everything. So glad to be able to do it, and hopefully we have some good racing this weekend at Miami and at Kansas.
I have more hopes for Kansas because this car seemingly is, at least for the Gen 7 cars, kind of meant for these 1.5 mile racetracks. So hope that that's the case. We'll catch that more than likely on Sunday. I'll catch the Sunday stuff. Saturday will be very busy for me. I'll be bowling in the NJ State bowling tournament, coming off of a week where I got to bowl in a pro-am with a bunch of PBA professionals because they're here at Carolier, Bolero, North Brunswick. So it's been a busy week. It's just been insane. I don't know how I basically kept it together. Maybe I haven't, but whatever. Thank you, Josh, for, of course, being my sidekick, my right-hand man, helping me with the tech issues. Essentially, I might be looking for a new microphone, but either way, this came out. I think it's probably going to come out pretty good, so maybe I don't have to. Just going to be a little different sound, but as Josh said, I mean, follow us on Twitter at GripStripPod, follow us at GripStrip Podcast on YouTube, where Josh posts video feeds. Follow at philipgmatthew.com or like whatever, subscribe. We're on. That's where one of the places you can find our show. That's also any place you find podcasts. You can find the Grip Strip podcast. We will be back. And I'm Philip G. Matthew on Twitter. We'll be back next week for episode 168 of the Grip Strip podcast, reviewing the NASCAR events at Kansas, Formula One at Miami, loaded roundup, going over Formula E, World Superbikes. I didn't mention F1 Academy, but I'll do that next week. MotoGP, Moto2, IMSA, WRC, Extreme E, and Indy NXT. The Grand Prix of Indianapolis for IndyCar, and the throwback triple header at Darlington Raceway. Before we get into the previews and picks, we'll definitely pick the ones that we like the most, the ones that suck or ones we think that suck, and then the people that didn't even try, which I think is really weak. It's worse than doing what Clyde does, which is, oh, my dad's driven for 90 years. I'm just going to keep on giving him more throwbacks. I mean, at least, but I will say, at least for before we get off the show, at least for Bill Elliott, most of these ones that he's run, Clyde, he's sort of won in. Yeah, the blue one he had a couple of years ago, he didn't, but it's about time you do a Ron Hornaday scheme. You're a Napa sponsored driver. He's one of the best drivers to drive a Napa sponsored car or vehicle. Why they don't do that is beyond me, but whatever. Harrison Burton throwing back to his dad's great and fine. I guess he's a top 75 driver, so I guess you should throw back to your dad. The fact that Harrison Burton still has a job tells you how bad Ford's driver development program is. Probably why Josh Berry might be in the 4-car. Not because he's bad, but because they don't have anybody young that actually has skill. They need to get a veteran who's got the ability to come in and take over such a big seat at Stewart Hospital. We'll get all into that more. Those rumors are out there. We'll get into it more as the weeks go on. We thank you for listening to the Grip Strip podcast. For Josh, I'm Phil. Take care. God bless and goodbye.